We are on Parak Tes Zayin Pasuk Chaf Hey, 1625. So the first thing you got over here is originally Moshe Rabbeinu, it's on page 824. Originally, Moshe Rabbeinu had summoned Dasan and Aviram to him. Now, why was it that he summoned them to him and he didn't go to them? So there's an interesting halacha. A leader of a community, a Rav or a leader of a community, there are certain halachas what he is and is not allowed to do. One of the things he's not allowed to do, he's not allowed to reduce his dignity, because his dignity is, like a rabbi once said to me, many people have said this, don't take yourself seriously, but you got to take the position seriously. So the Rav of a community, for example, is not allowed to be seen doing, a Rav of a community, his official Rav, is not allowed to be seen doing manual labor in the community. That reduces his stature. He has to maintain a certain stature in the eyes of the people. So the Rav of a community, for example, the Rav cannot move a bench in the shul, can't move a chair or a bench. And I remember the Rav of my shul, who is a very humble person, is not a person who in any way, shape has any focus on being honored, but I remember that he gave a shiur, and they had brought his chair. He's got a special chair that he sits in. They brought it into the back room for him to sit while he gave this halacha shiur. And then after that, we were going to daven mincha. And he just went over and he stood by his place. He didn't say anything, but he just stood by until somebody else brought his chair over. He wouldn't be allowed to pick up his chair and bring it over for himself. He's not allowed to be seen doing that. You're reducing you represent the Torah and the position of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu, as the leader of the Jewish people, he's bound by certain rules. So originally what he did is he asked Dasan and Aviram to come to him so he could broker peace. Now, if you look in Pasuk 25, Vayakam Moshe vayelech el Dasan v'Aviram. Moshe gets up to go to Dasan v'Aviram. Why does he do that? Why at this point? Earlier, Moshe felt that he's not allowed to, his position doesn't allow him to lower himself to go to Dasan and Aviram, so to speak. And this must have been very difficult for Moshe Rabbeinu, because the whole accusation is that you're lording yourself over us, and now he's summoning them to him, and no, we're not listening to you. And now Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Dasan and Aviram. So I was thinking about this, and it could very well be that at this point Moshe Rabbeinu understands we're now at the point of pikuach nefesh. Pikuach nefesh means it's life-threatening now, because he knows what the punishment is going to be. They're going to die. So Moshe Rabbeinu, at this point, Moshe Rabbeinu decides, now, because Pikuach Nefesh supersedes all halachas except for the big three, idol worship, immorality, and murder. So now Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Dasan and Aviram, because now Moshe Rabbeinu said, this is the last chance. Now we're at Pikuach Nefesh. See, Pikuach Nefesh is a very interesting thing. When people came to America in the 40s, people had to work on Shabbos. So there are many people who it was a grueling test, and people felt that it's pikuach nefesh because they need food for their family. So the post, it's not pikuach nefesh. You could eat bread, but you could still get a loaf of bread. It's not pikuach. Pikuach nefesh is when literally you're at the point. I even heard a story once in America. This guy says to his guy says to his wife, okay, that's it, I'm done at being fired, because the way it worked is if you didn't show up for work on Saturday, so then you were fired. And they say to you, if you don't come on Saturday, don't bother showing up on Monday. There were a lot of people in America who kept getting fired every week, and eventually it was a very, very difficult test. So there were actually religious men who would go to shul on Shabbos morning, and from shul they would go to work. It killed them to do it, but they felt they had no choice because they had to support their families. So this one guy refuses to, keeps getting fired. And one day he says to his wife, that's it, I got to go to work tomorrow. I can't do it anymore. We have a family. She said, you're not going to work. We're keeping Shabbos. He says, no, I got to go to work. It's pikuach nefesh. Okay, so what does she do? She takes it, she hides his clothing. Shabbos morning, he gets up, and he's looking, he can't find his clothing. He says to his wife, where's my clothes? She said, what do you need them for? He says, because I need to go to work. She said, why do you need to go to work? He says, pikuach nefesh. She said to him, if it's pikuach nefesh, you'll go in your pajamas. So he didn't go. Right? How's that for, if there was a fire in the house, that's pikuach nefesh. You wouldn't go looking for your clothes, you'd run out in your pajamas, right? So if it's pikuach nefesh, it's pikuach nefesh. They actually had a guy, who, the kids noticed when they walked into the sukkah, one year on sukkah, they noticed the sukkah had all these pink slips hanging from the ceiling. And they said to their mother, what are these pink slips? She said, these are sukkah decorations. She goes, what are they? She says, this is the pink slip your father got every Friday when he was fired from work. He got this pink slip. That's the ultimate sukkah decoration, what he's willing to sacrifice for Judaism. So it was a very difficult test. The Stipler, Rav Chaim's father, he was in the Polish army for about a year. And there are different versions of the story, but one of the versions is it was Shabbos and they told him to pick up a gun and shoot, target practice. And he said, I'm not shooting. So the sergeant starts hollering at him and says, Kanievsky, pick up the gun and shoot. And the people there, a couple of Jewish guys, say, you better shoot, it's pikuach nefesh. He says, I'm not shooting the gun. The sergeant stamps off and comes back with a major. Major says, Kanievsky, pick up the gun and shoot. He says, I'm not shooting. The major starts hollering at him. The Jewish guy saying, you better shoot, it's pikuach nefesh. So he leaves. Comes back with the colonel. Colonel says, Kanievsky, pick up the gun and shoot. He says, I'm not shooting. Takes his pistol and he puts it to his head and he says, if you don't shoot the gun, I'm going to blow your brains out right now. So he turns over, he goes, now it's pikuach nefesh. Okay? So apparently he took the gun, put it in the opposite hand, so it shouldn't be to Shabbos desecration by Torah laws, only if you do it the way it's actually done. He was a lefty. So he put the rifle in his right hand, took one shot, hit the bullseye, and that was the end of the story. That's what it said about this time. But the pikuach nefesh is when we're at the point of no return. That's pikuach. That little thing is pikuach. If you're on an airplane and they don't have your kosher meal, and they only have a non-kosher meal, that's not pikuach nefesh. Just because you're a little hungry, so you'll be hungry. Eat an apple. Right? You don't know. It's pikuach nefesh. You'll make it. You'll be okay. You're not going to die. That's not pikuach nefesh. It's an inconvenience, and it's difficult, and it ticks you off. It's not pikuach nefesh. So Moshe Rabbeinu goes to them. Now, Vayomer daber el ha'eda. He says to the congregation, 4 lines from the bottom. Suru na me'al oholei ha'anoshim ha'rashoim ha'ela. Move away from their tents. Ve'al tigu bechol asher lahem. Don't touch anything of theirs. Penti safu b'chol chatasa, because otherwise you're going to perish through their sins. And the Parsha explained, well, why should everybody else perish for their sins? And one of the reasons is because they didn't protest. Everybody saw what Korach is doing, so you didn't join the protest, but you didn't protest against the protest. You just stood there watching the action. For that alone, people there, and Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says he had a daven to get everybody else off the hook. And it's still not too late. Korach, Dasan, and Vir could still do tshuva. So if they move away from around Korach, Dasan, and Vir, 826 at the top, the Dasan v'Aviram yatzu nitzavim Pesach ha'oleim. Dasan and Aviram went out to the entrance of their tents. U'neshayim u'v'neim v'tapam, their wives, their sons, and their daughters. And one of the lessons here is that the kids are watching how the parents behave. Dasan and Aviram come marching out defiantly. And the kids are watching. So what are you doing? You're instilling in your kids the value that you should be the rabble-rouser in the shul and in the community. And the kids are watching, the parents do it. That's why it's not that difficult, by the way. When I meet kids, I don't have too much trouble figuring out what the parents are like. You can basically project. You're not going to get it exact, but you can get a pretty good idea. When you meet the kids, you get, from the kids' behavior, from the, you get a pretty good idea. I was just at the bus stop this morning. There were four, I think probably 12, 13-year-old girls, frum girls, are sitting at the bus stop. And they're sitting on the bench. I have no problem sitting down next to them if there would be room. There was no room. So I was standing by the bus stop. I had to stand for a couple of minutes. I had a safer. I had to stand for a couple of minutes waiting for the bus. I didn't want to say anything because while I'm waiting for the bus, I am personally involved in the situation. I have a personal bias. So I can't say anything. As soon as the bus pulled up, I turned to the girls, I said, the next time an older person is standing by the thing, you should get up and let the person sit down. Now they can't say I'm doing it for myself because they were getting on the bus already. But they need to be told. And they're sitting there they're just sitting there schmoozing. I'm standing there. I'm 3 times their age, 4 times their age, 5 times their age, 12 times their age. At the end of the day, they're just sitting there, and they obviously weren't trained by their parents. So I'll train them, but they need to hear it. They need to hear it from somebody. Sometimes you have to say it. I had a guy once on a bus here at Ohr Somayach. There's a guy, he had been a student here at Ohr Somayach. He was in my Gemara shir. Eventually he got married. We're living in a neighborhood. I get on the bus, and it was a crowded bus. He was sitting in the seat right behind the driver. I walked past him. He was trying as hard as he can not to look at me. And at a certain point he turned around and said, "Do you want to sit?" So I just went like that. And he turned around immediately because he didn't want to give up his seat. I waited. When we got off the bus and I was no longer have a personal interest at that moment, I said to him, if your Rebbe gets on the bus, you don't ask him, do you want to sit? You get up and you pull your Rebbe over and put him in the seat. You get up and you pull your Rebbe over and sit him down in the seat. Oh, no, you're asking me, right? What am I going to say? Yeah, get out. Right? I knew, and I could tell he didn't want to give up the seat. But I can't say anything while I'm on the bus because then I've got a vested interest and I don't trust my judgment. It's only when I'm off the bus that I could ask myself, do I need to say, yeah, now I need to say something. The same thing with these girls. The bus pulled up. At that point, I said, now I can say something because I don't have a vested interest. Now they'll know the next time they'll stand up for somebody when they should stand up instead of sitting there discussing and solving all the world's problems. So they say, what do you call it? Okay, got that off my chest. Now, so Vayomer Moshe, now listen to this. Here we're going to see, I actually chuckle a couple of times when I've seen this in the past, but now listen to this very carefully. Vayomer Moshe, Bezos Teidun ki Hashem shlachani, lasos es kol ha'maaseh v'el. This, now you're going to know that Hashem has sent me. Ki lo mi libi. I did not do this on my own. This was not my idea. And now you're going to see that this was not my idea. And not only that, I saw one of them, Meforshim says, you know what lo mi libi means? The proof that Hashem sent me is lo mi libi, because in my heart I didn't want to do it, what we had mentioned yesterday. The idea that we said yesterday. The reason you're qualified is because you don't want it. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, if you know anything about my history, you know how many times Hashem told me to do it and I said no? It's a great shot. Kilomi libi. That's the proof that Hashem has sent me. And you're challenging that. You're challenging the fact that you think that Hashem sent me. And I'm telling you, I didn't want it. And that's the proof that therefore Hashem sent me. That's why Hashem sent me. Because I didn't want it. And then he says like this. Im kemos kol ha'adam yamusun elu. If these people die a normal death, ufkudas kol adam yipoked aleim, and the fate of normal people is the fate that they go through, lo Hashem shlachani. If they die, if they drop dead of a heart attack or they have a plague, my bad. Hey, you're right, Hashem didn't send me. But v'im bria yivra Hashem. But if Hashem creates something, upatzas ha'adam espia, the earth opens its mouth, ubolosam, this kol asher lahem, and it swallows them up and all of the yordu chaim, so they go down into the depths alive. Then v'yadatem ki du'atzu anoshim elis Hashem. That'll be the proof that they've antagonized God. How would you feel if you were Korach and his followers right now? Listen, what did Moshe say? If they drop dead, my bad, I'm wrong. But if something unique happens and gets swallowed, then that's a proof Hashem sent me. What's the obvious question?
They're going to die.
They're going to die. Yeah, that's not a question, that's a statement. What's the obvious question?
Why the sudden change?
What change?
Attitude.
Nobody's attitude changed. Moshe Rabbeinu says he's making a declaration. You mean his attitude? He's not. His attitude didn't change. He just made a declaration. He said, you're accusing me of making this up. All right, listen, now we're going to prove it. If they drop dead normally of a heart attack, then they're right. I'm wrong. Yeah, you're right. Hashem didn't send me. But if I'm right, then it's going to open up the earth to swallow them up. Now, like Shmuel says, now what would you be thinking if you're Korach at this point?
No way that can happen.
No, I'd be thinking neither choice sounds great. If he's wrong, we die. And if he's right, we die even worse. If he's wrong, we die, A guy told me here once at Ohr Somayach, I had a student here, he told me his brother was walking down the hall of a public school. Brother's walking down the hallway, and he gets stopped. Two big black guys stop him in the hallway, and one of them throws a quarter on the ground. And he says, pick it up or I'm going to beat the tar out of you. And the other guy says, if you pick it up, I'm going to beat the tar out of you. Right? Neither one's a good choice. What do you do under those circumstances? This guy was a pretty tough guy. This guy himself, I imagine his brother was fairly tough. So what his brother, he told me what his brother did. He started bending down, and then he just came up swinging. He bent down as if he was going to pick it up, and then he just straightened out. He got in a couple of shots. Then they beat him up, but then they never messed with him after that. You know, they took a couple of shots, but neither choice was a great choice. Korach, what's happening over here? If they die, if I'm wrong, they die. What's the obvious question? What's the obvious question? No? What do you say, Moshe?
Right, why should they die?
If they're right, why should they die? Moshe Rabbeinu says, if I'm wrong, if they die, if they drop dead, then I was wrong. So why should they drop dead? What's the answer?
There's no way they're right.
That's true. Moshe Rabbeinu knows they're not right. But even from the terminology, even from, you know what Moshe Rabbeinu is really saying? They're wrong already. You've already done something wrong. Why? You got a problem? You got a problem with the local rabbi in the shul? You don't like the way he's running things? Why do you got to start a rebellion? Why do you got to start a protest? You have a problem? Go talk to the man. Call Moshe Rabbeinu. Could I speak to you a little bit? You know, we're not really happy about these appointments. How did this come about? You already, the Chassam Sofer says this. A person who starts a rebellion already has forfeited his right to live. You've already forfeited your right to live. Now it's only a question of how you're going to die, because if you're wrong, then you're really going to get it. But what do you have to go start trouble for? Why do you have to do that? And by the way, you should never be the guy who leads the rebellion in any situation. Sometimes I've seen this in schools also, where the parents are upset with the principal, so they had all the parents there. Don't be the guy, you shouldn't get involved at all, but certainly don't be the guy who leads the charge. Don't be the rabble rouser. You got a problem, deal with it on your own. Don't be the guy who leads, who foments rebellion. So they're already, the Chassam Sofer says, they've already forfeited their right to live because they started a rebellion. What are you starting trouble? That's the only way to deal with things? Immediately just go and start yelling and hollering and what do you call it? Starting a rebellion among the Jewish people, which ultimately you're challenging the legitimacy of the Torah and of God? You've already forfeited your right to live. And if you're wrong, then you're in big trouble, or in this case, deep trouble, right? So what happens? I mean, if I was Korach at this moment, you know, Korach's no fool. And to the contrary, the Medrash says he was a Talmid Chacham, he was a smart man. If I was Korach, they saw the Torah given at Sinai. They know that Moshe Rabbeinu has been pulling miracles all along. They know that they know the truth. And it's only because they're consumed with jealousy they're having an issue. I mean, at this point, push comes to shove. I would say, you know what, Moshe, can we have another chance? We just got carried away. Sorry. And they could have still done that. But then, Vayihi kechaloso ledaber. And he says they're going to go down alive. Vayihi kechaloso ledaber is called Dvarim Eila Pasuk Lamed Aleph. He finishes the instant he finishes, to demonstrate that it's at his word, so there are no cynics. The earth underneath them cracks. The earth opens its mouth. It swallows them and their houses. All the people with Korach and all of the property. The earth opened its mouth. This was not a regular earthquake. A regular earthquake cracks open. And then what happens? It stays open, right? It cracks. Look at the next pasuk. They go down alive into the depths. The earth covers them up. They are lost from the community. So what happened here? The earth opened its mouth. That means, according to the Mefarshim, the Ramban, I think, It was an actual mouth swallowing. It wasn't just an earthquake that opened up and they fell into the crack. It's opened up, and the proof that it's not a regular earthquake is that it again closed over them. It was sealed. You wouldn't find any fault line. You wouldn't find any crack. It was sealed. And there was a gulping. You ever hear in 7-Eleven had a drink called the Big Gulp, right? This was the original Big Gulp. And everybody heard a gulping. And they're getting swallowed up. And there's even a medrash. There are different opinions among the commentators. And one of the opinions is that they were being swallowed up slowly individually. You ever eat spaghetti? And you eat spaghetti every once in a while, kind of one or two pieces left, so you put the end in and you just kind of, right? And you get that little piece of spaghetti, you kind of suck up that little last piece, like that, and watch it go disappearing in. They were being a dasan, aviram, Korach. And everybody's watching them get swallowed up into the earth. It's bad. It's something you want to avoid. And they went down alive. That means that they didn't even suffer death as an atonement. They weren't privileged to die as an atonement up here. What happened down there, they died down there, but not up here. They get swallowed alive. Death is an atonement for a person. Sometimes a person dies that atones for sins. They didn't even merit an atonement. There's even a question over here on any of their wives who stayed alive, whether those wives could remarry now. This is right up our alley in Gittin, because they were swallowed up alive.
Did they swallow all their wives?
There's what are you're laughing? Yeah, it's a halachic question. They got swallowed up alive. Yeah. No. Down they go. Yeah, so what happened to the wife now? He got swallowed up alive. So there are different opinions about who it was that went down. Korach's wife definitely got swallowed. What do you call it? The children. Some of the children did get swallowed, some didn't get swallowed. One of the commentators says Korach's children got swallowed. Some of them did. Some of his sons did tshuva at the last minute. And the obvious question is what? If his children got swallowed up, the babies got swallowed up, what's the obvious question?
How come they got swallowed?
What'd they do wrong? What's the answer to that?
Proximity.
Proximity is not their fault either. Proximity is everybody else's. Moshe Rabbeinu says, get away, or proximity, oy l'rasha, oy l'shcheno. What did children do wrong? The answer, yeah, what do you say?
Did they also add fire to the
They were, even the little children were too. The answer is that it is, why is there a mitzvah in the Torah to kill Amalek, even Amalek babies, Amalek children? They have to be totally destroyed. The answer is because they've been infected. They're infected with Amalekism, which means that they are going to turn into anti-Semites. Here, remember the story in the Torah later on, there's a 13-year-old, it says the Ben Sorah Omorah, the rebellious son who is executed, even when he just for overeating meat and drinking wine, and he's executed. And the Gemara says, because Yamu Zakai vel Yomos Chayav, let him die meritorious and not wait until he does something that that he's actually guilty. Why? Because it's such a sure thing based on what's taken place that he's going to commit these crimes that we may as well take him out right now. So the Mefarshim explain over here, if the parents are rebels and they're rabble-rousers, that's something that's going to be absorbed into the kids. It's a benefit for the children to die now, meritorious, than to let them grow to become adults who are then going to start rebellions and make trouble and become outcasts. And therefore the Torah says they got swallowed up. Now, you'll notice that the earth covers them up. Vayovdu mitoch hakohol. They're lost from the congregation. That means, the Gemara says, even a needle of Korach, a sewing needle, did not remain. That means if you would have been there and you would have seen what happened, there was no evidence whatsoever that there was ever a man named Korach. Gone. Why? For two reasons. Number one, do you know what's the halacha if you're walking and you lose some money and a poor man finds the money? Do you get a mitzvah of tzedakah? The answer is yes. So if you ever do lose money, just hope a poor guy finds it. Or a teacher or Rebbe in Mechina, right? But just, if you ever lose money, I'm not saying names, but if you ever lose money and a poor man finds it, you actually get rewarded for that. Somehow you had a merit that a poor man would find it. Korach, we don't want him to have even that merit. Everything is lost. Everything is lost. Not even a needle, not even a coin. He has no chance of any other merits. And he's down there in the depths, and they're yelling. I told you yesterday, they're yelling, Moshe Emes v'Torah, they're jumping up and down. Moshe Emes, yeah, but they ain't singing and clapping. They're not singing and clapping, giving out candies to the kids on what do you call it, tossing kids up in the air. They're jumping up in the air, Moshe Emes v'Torah Emes. Too late. Too late. You missed it. You missed the boat. Too late. There they are. Toast. Down there in the depths. 1 second. The bigger question here is, and this is a question everybody asks, why this punishment? Why is the punishment that Korach is swallowed up in the earth? What do you say?
He used his mouth.
Correct. Very good. That's one of the Mefarshim says. Korach opened his mouth. And who did he open his mouth against? Aaron. The position he really wanted was Aaron. What is Aaron described there? Hashem says to Moshe, Aaron will be your peh, because Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech impediment. And Hashem says about Aaron, that Moshe Rabbeinu says, yeah, but I can't even talk. When Moshe Rabbeinu was still trying to get out of the whole thing, because he has a speech impediment, Hashem said, your Aaron will be your peh. So Korach opened his peh against Aaron's peh. He opened up his mouth. The earth creates a mouth. It has actually a mouth. Hey, looks like a mouth. I told you, there are other opinions that the cracks followed them around, like in the cartoons. You know, wherever they ran, the crack from the earth just followed them around till it swallowed them up. There's the other opinion I told you that it's kind of sucking them in slowly. Like, I'd be a good earth, right? Yeah.
When they do the movie remake.
I'll do the sound effects, or I'll play the rabbi, whatever. So Korach, they get swallowed. So why do they get swallowed up? So I saw one interesting idea. Moshe Rabbeinu is described later on as being the most humble man, al pnei ha'adama. Not later on, earlier, we had in Parsha's Baal, Aish Moshe, Anav me'od, Mikola Isha al pnei ha'adama. Moshe Rabbeinu is the most humble man on the face of the earth. So Korach, they have to show that Korach is less than Moshe Rabbeinu. Well, there's only one thing below the face of the earth that's getting swallowed up in the earth. So go joink, right? It gets gobbled up in the earth. That's those are the two. The peh is the first, very good Eitan. That's the first I play, but there's a deeper idea here. The deeper idea is Korach is suffering from jealousy. Korach is suffering from jealousy. And jealousy means, where does jealousy come from? Jealousy means that I've lost my own identity and I'm focused on you. I don't have anything. I've only focused on what you've got. Like Haman said, V'kol ze eino shoveli. Whatever I have is worth nothing to me. Because one piece of jealousy causes you to forget everything. Somebody's got a different talent that you have, somebody's got a different ability, somebody's got different material possessions, and you're caught up in a fit of jealousy. We look at somebody else, right at that moment that I'm jealous, I don't exist. I don't exist, because that's the only thing that exists is him and what he's got. So what does Hashem say? Like the proverbial father? Oh, you feel you don't exist? I'll give you some don't exist. And what happens? The earth opens up, and there's no trace of a memory of Korach. You felt you don't exist, and you felt that you have nothing. Now I'll show you what nothing really is. Now I'll show you what it is to not exist. And therefore he's swallowed up and completely covered over, and there's no trace whatsoever that there was ever a man named Korach. And that's where jealousy is coming from, and that's the punishment that he gets. And they get swallowed up. The question here is, what do you call it? What happens to them where they are, and they're described as being in Gehenna, but we know that Gehenna is a spiritual thing. So how could there be a physical Gehenna? What does that mean? They're in Gehenna. They're not in Gehenna. They're in the depths of the earth, and somehow they got swallowed up. Whatever the case is, there's one of the ideas that the fire of Gehenna, the spiritual fire, which there is, by the way, has some sort of physical counterpart in the earth, some idea like that. And they go down into that Gehenna. That's why I told you the Gemara says, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, when he went through the desert, he saw smoke coming out of the grave. And he saw smoke, the smoke coming out, because they're described as being in Gehenna, even though it's a physical thing, and Gehenna is a spiritual thing. Whatever the case is, it's not a good thing. And so Korach and his men become it. Now, we learn a halacha from here. Take a look further. Look at the next page, 828. Moshe Rabbeinu says to take the fire pans, and they're going to use these fire pans as a coating for the altar. Page 828, 4 lines. Zikaron livnei Yisrael aman asher lo yikra ish asher ish zar asher lo mizer Aaron hu lahaktir ketoras lifnei Hashem. These fire pans will serve as a reminder that nobody who is a non-Kohen should approach to burn ketoras. And then the Torah says, "V'lo yeh kekorach lecha kasher diber Hashem biyad Moshe lo." One should not be like Korach and his congregation. That is counted as one of the 365 negative prohibitions in the Torah. It's a losase. Don't be like Korach. That means don't fight and don't argue and don't be what do you call it? Don't be a rabble rouser. And don't be disagreeable. And it could very well be, by the way, I saw I think Rabbi Victor Miller says, anytime you start an argument or you perpetuate an argument or a fight, and it could be with your wife, and it could be with your neighbor, and it could be with your wife, and it could be with your parents, and it could be with your wife, and it could be with somebody in the yeshiva, and it could even be with your wife. At that point, you're being like Korach, you're transgressing. You're transgressing. And the best thing that you could do is either be quiet or walk away. And a person who does not argue, when you feel like arguing and you respond, the Gemara says, Tola Eretz al Belima. The Gemara says on the pasuk that Hashem, do you ever wonder, what's keeping the earth up? The earth is just kind of there, floating around in space. What's keeping it up? Up, down, whatever relativity is, up, down. So I think the Greek, who was it? The Greeks or the what do you call it? They had, who was that? Atlas? Was it Greek?
Yeah,
holding the world up, yeah. But we don't know what he was standing on.
Turtle, they said.
Oh, he was standing on a turtle. Oh, right, there's that picture of him there. And what was the turtle standing on?
Turtles.
Oh, turtles. Why turtles? Why turtle? What do turtles got? All right, I would put camels before I put turtles. All right, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, the earth is just kind of there. What's keeping the earth up? Why did the earth just start dropping? Says the Gemara, a person who doesn't respond when there's a potential argument. That's what keeps the entire earth is in existence. That's what it means. The earth exists in the merit of somebody who does not respond. And it's one of the most difficult things in the world, by the way. When somebody provokes you, somebody says something to you, and you don't say anything, nothing. You don't react. It's a tremendous, tremendous merit. A person could gain unimaginable reward simply by not responding. And it's a very difficult thing. And the problem is that it's most difficult with our nearest and dearest. With the parents, with your children, with your spouses, that's when it's most difficult. Because there our guard is down. When you're in the office, the boss said something, it's not strategically wise to respond. But if it's your parents or it's your spouse or it's your children, what big deal? Anyway, I can holler louder than them, so they better listen, type of thing. That's the prohibition. So a person who's in a situation where you're being provoked or there's potential for an argument, and you start it, even worse, you start it, then you're transgressing. All right, that's our show for today.